everyone. Welcome to another episode of Isolation Central. This is episode number 9. So it means कि हमें लॉकडाउन में आए हुए तकरीबन 9 से 10 दिन हो चुके हैं. सो क्या हो रहा है, कैसे हो रहा है, कौन क्या कर रहा है, इस पे आज हम दोबारा बात करेंगे. और इसके लिए हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं सना. थैंक यू सना फॉर ज्वाइनिंग अस.
Thank you for having me.
सना एक ऑथर हैं. इनके काम के हवाले से ये क्या लिख रही हैं, क्यों लिख रही हैं, क्या लिखा है, इस सब से डिटेल में बात करेंगे. बट उससे पहले आई थिंक सबसे पहले जो हमारा आज का बर्निंग क्वेश्चन है वो यही है कि आजकल हाउ द आइसोलेशन, सेल्फ आइसोलेशन इज गोइंग फॉर यू सना.
Self-isolation, now it's going better. In the first 10 days, it was quite difficult, I think, because everything was happening too suddenly. There was too much information coming from everywhere. And most of it was alarmist. Most of it was negative, and it was unhelpful, to be very honest, because the thing about social media is when you're sort of in on it, because I depend a lot on mainstream media as well for news items. But then the social media thing is that you can't really sift through the information and the misinformation. And that is one thing which I think which really depressed me a lot. It really, it was a big emotional and psychological setback for me. But then gradually, I sort of just sat down with myself because I am a mother, I have children, I have a family, and I can't just mop around. I can't really take one corner in the house and just stay there. I have some duties, psychological duties and emotional duties towards my children as well. So I really sat down with myself and I asked myself the question that how am I going to come out of this? That's right. This is happening. It's been happening for months around the world. This has now come to our country. It's going to travel further and it's going to stay here for a while. But this is not exactly how I'm going to stay. This is not how I want to run my house. This is not how I want to be for the next few weeks or whatever God has planned. But then the thing is, the answer that I got from myself was that I need to redefine the terms isolation and quarantine. Because isolation as a word, it has negative connotations. And when we speak of isolation, it either wantingly or unwantingly, it gives us an impression of being in captivity or ensnarement of sorts, right? Or it gives us a very gloomy sort of a feeling, as if we have to be melancholic about it. But then I started redefining this isolation for myself, and that meant that I started looking for words that were more helpful. Like I'm an introvert, to be honest. I'm not really good at going out or mingling with crowds. So that helped me a lot by redefining isolation as something that it was a time that I need to spend something, that's the popular notion that's going about. And the time that I'm going to spend with myself and with my family or with the house, with the different corners of the house, which I had not visited because or in the rest of the house, in the garden, that is something that we are dependent on a lot of other people, the domestic staff usually, because they help us out with these things. So I started exploring the nooks and crannies of my own house. That meant clearing out some bookshelves. That meant exploring some ebooks on the phone, because I'm a person who has problem reading ebooks. But then I started exploring that side of my personality. Though fine, it's all right. I started reading ebooks and they don't really physically pain me the way they used to a few days ago. And quarantine as well. Quarantine is a word that has its roots in Latin. And I just recently discovered that all it means is 40 days. So when I looked at these words and in a very different way, in a very positive way, in a way that they do not really give me the negative vibes that these words usually give to us, they're for me, and I'm dealing quite well with it now. I'm fine. I really want to be bored for 2 or 3 hours now, because there's so much to do around the house. There's so much to do with the kids. There's so much to read and write. I'm really bored at all. And I think those people who think that, or all those people who are still struggling to redefine isolation or quarantine for themselves or quarantine for themselves, I think they really need to. That's because we we can't really take too much advice from different people, Hammad. That is also very confusing. That is also emotionally very taxing. When you start to take advice from everybody, then you're actually confusing your own heart. You are your own therapist right now. That's what I believe, that you know yourself the best. No one else is going to come out and tell you what you want for yourself. So try to discover what is going to relax you. I think everyone needs to see what worked for me. I hope it works for other people as well.
Fatma.
Yeah, so you really pointed out well that social media pe you can't really block information. Yeah, you can't pick and choose कि जी हम सिर्फ positive news पे focus करेंगे. But I was seeing your Twitter account and you have like started adding some positivity in the form of visuals. आप कुछ अपनी पुरानी pictures वगैरह landscape landmarks की share कर रहे हो. तो उसके पीछे जरा बताओ what gave you that idea, and what are you like? Is this just sharing? होता ना हर एक के फोन में कुछ तस्वीरें होती हैं. Many times ये बीच में आके हम share करते हैं. Is that something that you are doing on a regular basis? That this is you're making a conscious choice of doing it in this specific time?
Well, Fatma, thank you for noticing the pictures. It's a conscious choice for sure. That is something that I'm doing because I'm very sorry to say this, I follow very cool people on Twitter. But the thing is, the timeline on my own Twitter, on my own Twitter feed, it was sort of getting very depressing. And Lahore is a place that I totally love. I think anyone who reads my work or anyone who engages with me on Twitter or Facebook, they know that I have a great fondness for the city of Lahore. And that is because I am very interested in learning about its history, the landmarks that are forgotten or those which even my children have not even visited in their lifetime, which is not something I'm very proud of. I will take them sometime there, the roots. So what I was trying to do was go around Lahore, since that is one thing which we are not doing during self-isolation. We are not going around the city, right? So I love the ruins. At the time, I'm posting the pictures of one landmark or one historical building or one park, just to break the timeline and also to remind people that, yes, the city we have not forgotten the city, and the city is not going to forget us. It's still going to be there. And once this is over, inshallah, we are going to go to these places. So why not just visit together virtually? Because that is what we're doing right now. So those pictures, I hope they help I hope it helps them to virtually see and enjoy those buildings, because I love them.
Yeah, they do actually help. So moving on, you said, you just shared, I think everybody is doing that in deep cleaning. जब सारे घर की अब खुद कर रहे हैं, so everybody is visiting a section of their house that they haven't really done. I also am in the process of sorting my library as well. But talking about books, what are you reading these days? हम आपके काम पे भी आते हैं, but पहले आजकल आप क्या पढ़?
मैं अभी आजकल तो मैं पढ़ रही हूँ खदीजा मस्तूर की, मुझे एक ई बुक की शक्ल में मिले हैं ऑनलाइन, क्योंकि इत्तेफाक से मेरे पास उर्दू अदब में कोई ज़्यादा ज़ख़ीरा किताबों का मौजूद नहीं था, लेकिन मुझे इन दिनों में मुझे ज़रा की शॉर्ट स्टोरीज पढ़ी, मैंने खदीजा मस्तूर की आजकल पढ़ी, लेकिन उससे पहले मुझे जो मैं इस दौरान से पहले जो 3-4 किताबें पढ़ चुकी हूँ, मैं वो ज़रूर आपके साथ शेयर करना चाहूँगी.
Yeah, please do.
अगर
जी.
Right. This is one book which I was lucky enough to order the same day it landed in a independent bookstore in Lahore. It's called Feminism by Mickey Kendall. It's a really good book. It's not only meant, although there's a tagline on top of it which says that that every white woman who calls herself a feminist will read this book. That's the wish. But not only women, but even those who don't believe in feminism or those who have confusions or questions about feminism, they really need to read this book, because this is about basic concepts of feminism, how socio-political, economic, labeled as feminist issues, like housing, like food on the table, like the economic stability, questions of race, questions of gender. All of these are addressed in this book. So this is a very, very good book. I think everyone should read it. I've read This Is It. This is in Urdu. It's Mr. and Mrs. Jinnah. It's a translation by Sheila Reddy. No, actually, it's a book by Sheila Reddy, but the translation has been done by us. It's a really good book. It's something that was very comforting. There was some information about Mr. and Mrs. Jinnah, that is Ruti Jinnah, which we know. There was some information that we don't know. Altogether, there was a lot of politics. There was a lot of the story of their marriage, which was happy. It was sort of filmy in the beginning, and then it became sort of sad. But it was really good. I really enjoyed it a lot. And this is a book that I have revisited, the third one. And George Orwell is like among my top 3 authors. I really admire him a lot. His essays, his fiction, his nonfiction. I've enjoyed reading it all the time. This book is something that makes those who have read it, it makes sense to them as well. And it's very important. It's very special to me, actually, because this book is an edition from 1949, the first print, and it belonged to my daddy. And daddy introduced literature to me. So this precious books that I've read during this time.
Interesting. I also have read.
What you're reading these days?
Yeah, I am reading Malcolm Gladwell's How to Talk to Strangers. It's a very interesting book. It's about basically how we have our preconceived notions can result in some really major misinterpretations, and how basically the focus has been on the racism that happens in America, the police brutality, like incidents, basically. Those were the basic incidents that made him write this book. But I love him. I have read everything that he has written, and I will recommend that you guys read him as well.
I will definitely. Now I have.
And for starters, you might also want to just check out his podcast as well, which is available on the podcast platforms. It's by the name of Revisionist History. So that's something.
All right. Thank you very much.
Amal, would you recommend add some recommendations of your?
Yeah, for sure. हमने 2-3 दिन पहले भी बात की थी, but I'm still continuing with the book I started some time ago. That's Musharraf Ali Farooqi's The Merman and the Book of Power. And interestingly, luckily, I have with me as well. So this is something that I really love about this book. That this has all these kind of illustrations, and you get to know what is that character's name and what it is coming from, and then you can imagine it, and then you actually get to see one version of it, which is drawn by Michel Farouki. So it's a very interesting book because I am a big fan of Qissa Goi, जिसे दास्तान गोई कहते हैं, and a big fan of Dastani Amir Hamza and Tilsam Ho Shubha since my childhood. And I'm still, जो मुझे अभी भी उसका वर्जन मिलता है किसी का लिखा हुआ, मैं उसको पकड़ लेता हूँ, and I love to read them in Urdu, but Musharraf Sahib has done a good job in English as well. But since this is an original work, so I'm really enjoying it and meeting the mystical new creatures from the ancient times.
I read this book actually, Hammad. I totally love the book. I think the Qissa was amazingly told, but those the pictures that you bring, the explanations that go side by side with them, they were honestly, they were at times very eerie. Sometimes I was totally freaked out by them, and I was like, yeah, I hope कि असल में जिंदा होके अपने सामने ना.
But it's really good. So what I did was
because they were so well explained. Really
I tried कि पहले मैं वो पढूं, imagine करूं, और उस पे मैंने वो पेज कवर किया हुआ था, और फिर मैं वो पेज खोल के देखता था कि अच्छा जो मैंने सोचा था. So that was a very interesting exercise के you get to imagine something and then actually look at it. वरना I thought कि bias आ जाएगा शायद कि पहले तस्वीर देख ली और फिर वो पढ़ा. But that was probably my favorite part of the book, imagining these creatures, and then I guess you are right. Some of them did creep me out.
Yeah, they were
I don't know if you call it eerie or not, but वो was just Hammad, because I've also read it. I even reviewed the book.
Yeah, I remember that.
the writing and the description, even if you're not seeing the images, वो writing और जब आप image देखते थे वो ज़्यादा difference नहीं होता था. The writing
Yeah.
made you imagine almost वही चीज जो page पे.
Yeah.
And that is I think the power of that writing कि उन्होंने उसको इस तरह explain किया है कि जो वो image दिखाना चाह रहे थे या जिस तरह उन्होंने उसको सोचा था
exactly.
artist ने, उसी तरह exact बड़े अच्छे अल्फाज में आपने वो लिखा है ताकि एक आम आदमी भी उसी तरफ जा रहा है उसी तरह imagine करने को. So that I think is the power of storytelling and Kissa Goi and Dastan Goi. So I am definitely enjoying this book. It's going slow, but I'm happy with the pace. So it's okay.
And I think the interesting thing is, because I think we were discussing this separately as well, that there is a version of this book which does not have these illustrations.
Yeah.
So initially, when I got to know this, I was like, those who won't get the version which doesn't have the illustrations, they are gonna miss out a lot. But वही वाली चीज़ है कि if they have the mental images जो यही होंगे, तो I think they will enjoy the book as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving on to reading, we are people who are interested in reading. I think I can say this safely. The three of us we were blessed to have a parent who transferred their love of books to us. I can say this about myself. I inherited it from my mother. Hammad को भी जो ये खासतौर पे जो उर्दू लिटरेचर के ज़्यादा पढ़ता है, ये अभी इसने किसी एपिसोड में शेयर किया था that he got this from his mother as well. And I know, having interviewed you before, you also inherited this from your father. You just mentioned as well. But जो आपने detail बताई थी, I would like that you share it यहाँ भी, because that's a very interesting story as well.
I think he was a professor of English. We lived abroad for some time, and then I was like 12 years old when we came to Pakistan. Like before coming to Pakistan, English was the only language that I understood, I spoke, I wrote, and I read. After coming to Pakistan, it's my dad who taught me from Alif Bay to grade 5's Urdu during one term. And our house was always full with English literature, because I couldn't really get any help with that language. That's the only language I've taken help from him, that is English. And I had no choice after I was past Lady Bird or in written or these the choice for me. But whenever I would look in the library from dad's books, I had to pick a classical novel out of there because that was something that was available. And once I would run out of books like these Mallory Towers or Hostel Ki Ladkiyan from Britain, these books were always all the rage amongst girls of our age. But then once I was past all that, classical literature is something that I have fondness for. I remember my first novel was it was Jane Austen. It was Northanger Abbey, and I think to date it's my favorite Austen novel. Then I moved on to Madame Bovary. There was novels which I could find in my father's possession. There was poetry, there was drama. And the reason I think that I have been struggling with reading ebooks or other people who my friends used to really love reading, I couldn't really put myself in that mood. I think I couldn't really enjoy those books because I still wanted to read about old buildings and old dress, all that, because that is something that took my fascination. That's something that took my fancy. And I think I'm still in that state of mind that I really enjoy classical sort of reading. And that brings to mind that book, although it was released a few years ago, but that was the first book I read in 2020, Snuffing Out the Moon. That was a book I really enjoyed reading. That had that feel to it, that trouble of war, and there was talk of Mir Sahab, and there was talk of the Galiyan and the Drakhts and the ruins. I still have it with me here. I think I have it. Yeah, this is the book I'm talking about. It's really good. It's something that I really enjoyed reading. So I think it's the love of literature it's something that I think I've inherited And like Fatma said, we all do it some way or the other. Like if my children, they have their own collection to read, for example, Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or this kind of books. I've tried to read those books, but if they read it, I think it's because they have also seen their father and their mother collect books, love them. That is very essential, I think, to those mothers or those parents who have this complaint that children these days don't really read because they have so many gadgets, and that is because all this gadgetry. Let's blame it on the machine. No, it's not that we have this environment of reading. If we have this environment and this atmosphere of loving books and reading, then of course children are also going to be drawn to it. With a tablet or with a phone, of course that is what they're going to copy, right? Because I've as a parent, the thing that I've learned is that our children are not going to follow what we are lecturing them about. They are going to follow what they're going to see us when we are reading, so our children are going to read as well. I think that's what I think as a parent.
Let's move on to your work now. हमने recommendations भी कर लिया, आप जो पढ़ रहे थे उस पे बात कर ली. So you write, you're a columnist as well, and you write fiction as well, and your fiction, from what I have read, has a lot of focus on feminism. So one of the first books you also mentioned, I hope that it will be a great recommendation too, because हमारे यहाँ ये बहुत, सिर्फ हमारे यहाँ नहीं, globally it's a huge debate. And अभी recently जब यहाँ पे एक women's march भी हुई थी, तो वो हर साल एक दफा वो reignite होती है, and it has different ideas, different sides to the conversation, and people have a very set image, generally speaking, a very maybe a very, I don't know if I can call it a stereotypical image of what they believe, that those who believe in the idea of feminism are, this is what their personality is, this is who they are. So share about when did you started developing an interest in the subject. Obviously aapne padha bhi hai us pe, and then how did it translate it into work? Because आपकी जो एक short story collection है, which I have read, the Unfettered Wings वाली जो है, what I liked about your book was that every story had a very different protagonist in it, and हर story का एक बहुत ही different angle था. मतलब at times you would think कि अच्छा ये इस तरह जा रही है, ये इस तरह end होगी, and when वो story end होती थी, you would be like, really? So just talk about your work, how feminism has influenced you, and or all that you have written in this page, and maybe read a bit from one of your works if you would want to do that.
All right, Fatma, about feminism, there's one thing that I need to clarify. I've said this is not only for women. That is something that women and men both need to understand. Feminism is for men and women, because if one gender or one section of the population, one section of the society is going to be underprivileged, that negative vibes are going to reflect on those who are sort of privileged in the first place right now. To make it more easier, I'm going to use some mathematical us in school, so they are not very difficult. There were these words of constant and variable. The problem which usually arises, that is what I think the problem is, that there's a lot of confusion about feminism, which is why it is disliked. Otherwise, I don't think if feminism is understood properly, anyone would have any problem with it, because there is no. Feminists do not hate men. Feminists do not want men to stop. I mean, they don't expect women and men. The basic thing about feminism is that we need to see each other as individual members of the society, irrespective of race, religion, color. where we stand in a domestic setup, in a social setup, or in a legal setup, right? Or in a political setup, in an economic setup. These things are not the definitions. These should not be the person. Having said that, coming back to the variables and constant thing, when women have to make a comparison between the privilege that a man has in a society or in a domestic setup or in a legal setup, then the privileges that a man has is the constant. Now that constant helps us understand the variable. The variable is femininity or the lack of security that a woman has in any kind of setup. Until and unless there is a constant there to compare the variable, how can we discuss the variable in the first place? So the thing men are asking for equal rights, it's not that they want something, they have something against men. It's a system that feminists are fighting against, and that's patriarchy. Now, the interesting thing about Fatma, it is supported by men alone. It is supported by some women as well. I was reading in a book by Mr. Malik that is, it is We Need News Stories. That's a beautiful book. A friend has borrowed it from me. Otherwise, I would have get that in that book. And even in Mickey Kendall's book, the thing that we understand about feminism, or the thing that defines it, is that there is no stereotyping. When women who are feminists are against, or she is wearing this kind of clothes, so this is the kind of person she is. She has this kind of belief, that's why she's this kind of a person. When you're fighting against stereotyping, then how can we stereotype men? You know, that's totally clear. Is the purpose. But sometimes things are defined not properly. I think they miscommunicate. They disinform or misinform people more than they help a cause. To see people as individual members of the society with an equal playing field, who are given the equal opportunity. It's not that women who are not economically independent, or they lack in exposure, or they lack in awareness about their own being and the law and different rights. It's not because they have tinier brain cells or because they have a smaller brain. No, that's not it. It's because they lack exposure. It means they have not been given the correct education. It means they have not been informed well. So the problem lies in the system and not in the women, right? And that it also applies to men as well. Informed or disinformed men, they cause a special kind of social disparity. Now, when social disparity, it begins at home. A woman who is giving birth to girls, let's say, she is not only under pressure to give birth to a son from her husband, but also from her mother-in-law, also from her own mother, also from her sisters-in-law. So it's a real purpose, right? So what we need to see about feminism is that what we need to understand and establish, especially among those who have a misconception about it, is that it's not about stereotyping men. It's not about hating men at all. That constant and variable thing is, I think that is something that really makes you understand that why women, when they're demanding for their rights or when they're asserting for their rights, why do they have to make a comparison? Because that's the constant that has been feminism. The other part of your question, how it became my choice of genre, I think I never chose it for myself. Fatma, it began, and especially when I was MA degree. I have done an MA degree in mass communication theory and research. So I have not really studied mass communication. I have not really studied journalism. What I've studied was theory and research. That was how to, the different theory of media communication, media hierarchies and all that. And then there was a lot of research involved in that degree. And when I was writing my research papers, I think that is the time when I discovered that since we were supposed to write about media, whatever, then I discovered that what really irked me in media was that how stereotypically were women represented, whether it be Pakistani media or Indian media or Hollywood then. I mean, it was so stereotypical. It was so, and women were so underrepresented. And in the end, come what may, every woman's goal is to walk off into the sunset with a prince. I mean, for God's sake, does every story have to end like that? Does every story have to begin like that? What I chose, since I was very interested in animated movies. I don't know if this sounds funny to you because still the only reason I go to the cinema is be it Frozen, be it Disney or anything. But so I just took the topic for my first research paper, and I started studying Disney as one entity. And it just dawned upon me that, for example, there was this Chinese character, Mulan. I think they have this even picture coming out of that. Yeah. And she's supposed to be a warrior. She's, she does a lot for her country. 10 cartoon movies which I studied, and I discovered that there is a facade of empowering women when it comes down to media or when it comes down to building narratives. This is a facade that a girl who runs out of her house in order to save her father and she becomes a warrior. She can't become a warrior until unless a lizard and a locust is there to help her out. Like that happens in Disney throughout. Disney has no parents, they have no education. They live alone, locked up in towers. They have to be saved. And in the end, they have to have a prince who gets to get, who marries them and takes them away. She has no work. So the things that we induce from these movies, I have a problem letting my children watch these movies until unless I approve of a Disney film, and a very dangerous narrative that you're inducing into the minds of your children. And that's how the word norms come into being. Beauty and the Beast, for example, a beast because he's a lunatic. He's rude. He to eat at a table. He doesn't know how to speak to a woman. He's abusive. And within one song, Beauty just falls in love with him because he has some kindness in his eyes. I mean, for God's sake, what are you talking about? Minds of young girls, that it's fine. I'm going to speak Punjabi here. Koi nahi, theek ho jayega. ऐसे ठीक नहीं होता. ऐसे ठीक नहीं होता. Abusive husband does not. Women who have to go through domestic abuse, women who have to go through workplace abuse, women who have to go through all kinds of emotional or psychological abuse, they have to live their whole life. I mean, because one day the beast is going to turn into a prince, or one day, no, that's not how it happens. I mean, you have to, if marriage is something that a story is telling, if marriage is the narrative that a movie or a drama or a book is building, can be done with a point of view that puts the responsibility of a relationship on both of them, not on one, right?
True, definitely.
But I think that is that way. And sorry?
Okay, but हमारा वही जिस तरह आप कह रहे हो कि mainstream, be it the local media or the international, we don't get to see that creation of balance. I can't
even watch TV plays. Exactly. I can't watch TV plays because of the fear that I don't know where this narrative is going to take us to. What kind of narrative? And you're unwinding and then a story is starting to unfold. Then, it's difficult to decipher from right to wrong. And then normalizing things through media, normalizing abuse through media, normalizing one can do. I feel that this is very misunderstood. The thing that strong women, as you've already talked about my book a little, Fatma. I'm always your own trumpet all the time, but it's that strong woman doesn't always have to be educated. She in our setup, how many women have got a good, does that mean those women who clean another woman's house or a woman who sweeps the road? I mean, does that mean she doesn't have any stoicism or courage in her? Shedding the economical setup of her own house. She is financially feeding a husband or children. So I feel that any woman who's contributing financially, is contributing to her household, she is a strong woman. And we need to have the eye. We need to have the eye to appreciate and see the stoicism and the strength in women, especially those who are around us. And we don't bother to have a look at them and that's it. Yeah, she's just a woman. So in my book, like there are 10 stories and there's a focus on 13 women. I think I have consciously made an effort to take different parts of the country to tell each story. Like there is the desert of Balochistan, there are the mountains of KP, there is Hazara, because Hazara, there is Karachi, there is Islamabad. I think I've taken different geographical locations and I purposefully did that because I really wanted to tell stories of women, demographical backgrounds, those who act differently according to the socio-political, cultural, and geographical location. That every woman has the same privileges, not every woman has the same exposure. There are women who live in dens, there are women who live in bungalows, but all of them are living in are fighting a different story that was of Professor Meera, who was a rich lady in Karachi, I think, or a rich lady in Lahore. The rest of them are very non-urban stories. And that was a very conscious effort on my part. And I think it's actually because of the fact that the women were those who don't really make a lot of space in mainstream literature.
So I think यहाँ पे we can take
that's I think
comments as well. Sara Hidayat is saying that I'm so glad that someone is talking about Beauty and the Beast, and I think उसी point के ऊपर follow up करते हुए अली मजर भी कह रहे हैं very well said Sana. So people are agreeing with your stance on Disney.
Great, good to know that.
Yes, Fatma, आप कुछ कहने लगे थे?
Sana, because you've talked about, that you made a conscious effort about making these stories. So before you do a reading, I would थोड़ा writing technique के perspective से, I mean, I think generally, I don't know if you get this question a lot or not, but as a fiction writer, when you're writing something, what do you think about, or what's your procedure, if I can call it that? Do you just come up with plot lines first and then the characters come in and they help along the story? Or given कि जिस तरह का subject था आपकी short stories का, I have yet to read your other works as well, but in specifically इस book का अगर मैं reference use करूँ, or did you have these characters because you said you made a conscious effort of taking these non-urban characters? क्या आपने पहले character development किया किसी big story का and then उसके इर्द गिर्द फिर then you develop a plot line?
फातिमा, ये बात तो दुरुस्त है कि ये सवाल तो पूछा जाता है, लेकिन इसका जवाब थोड़ा दिलचस्प भी है और थोड़ा डरावना भी है. मैं बहरहाल कोशिश करती हूँ कि मैं आसान अल्फाज में और अपने इस सवाल का आपके जवाब में दे दूं. I meet my characters in my subconscious brain. Weird, but this is how it is. I see my characters and I befriend them. Sometimes they come with their setting to me. Sometimes they come without a setting. Them in a certain attire. I can see them speaking a certain language. I can see them with a certain personality. Some of them are robust. Some of them are dynamic. Some of them are quiet. Some of them are meek. But brings with her usually it's women, I befriend them. I try to speak with them. And gradually, I start to see them in their setting. Once then I start to spin a story around them. Because in contemporary writing, there is a problem, a sort of a problem, that you usually don't tell fiction for the sake of telling a story. Once upon a time, the end. That's not how it is. Your story needs to have a purpose, because that is what publishers or magazine editors are also going to ask you. Okay, fine, you've told us the story. What's the purpose? That is a question. So when you get the setting, you get to see where that character lives. You get to see what kind of a house she has, what kind of a family. Does she have education? Does she have a family? Does she work? Does she stay at home? Is she single? Is she married? When all of these things have come to you, then, I mean, at least to me, then you start to spin out words. You have to build a narrative. I believe, as a writer, that storytelling and narrative building are two very different things. A storytelling thing is something that you tell a story for the purpose of the story, and that's it. But when you're building a narrative, you have to be conscious of many things. You have to be conscious of being politically correct. You have to be conscious of adding to an existing body of literature, which is a vast body of literature, but you want to sound different. And then when these things also are causing some sort of pressure on you, then you have to build a narrative that is going to be not only purposeful, but is also going to be slightly different. It is going to have some. I write to tell stories of women. If you've mentioned my columns, I usually call them essays. So those essays which I had written about women, especially from the subcontinent, there was no from I think 11 women that I wrote about, because there were only 11 women that I could find a connection to with Lahore. And when I'm telling their stories, I need to make sure that I bring up those aspects of their which are not very popular. We get to know about Noor Jahan that she introduced biryani. We get to know about Noor Jahan that she was very pretty. We get to know that she was the 20th or 22nd wife of Jahangir. But what we don't get to know is that she was a businesswoman, that she was a designer. She was a fashion designer. She had a daughter from her earlier marriage. She was Persian by nature. She was Persian by descent, and I have already discussed in detail. I don't really want to bore people here with a history lesson, but the thing is that when I'm telling a story, I want to tell how many aspects or how many facets of a personality of a woman need to be explored. That is what I've tried to do in this book. That is what I try to do every time I tell a story of a woman, be it fiction, be it a newspaper article, be it a novel or anything. That is, I think, that is about the outline thing. Yes, outline is essential, but I can't really write down long passages of outline. I just sit in front of a laptop once I feel that I'm going to write now, because I've taken down some notes. Then I sit down and I have to wait for the words to come to me. I was speaking at a talk last year. I think it was Islamic Literature Festival, and I was asked this question. And I told, it's very easy when the story has unfolded itself to you, when you have taken your time letting the characters reveal themselves to you, when you have befriended them, when you dream about your story, when you have dated them, when you're engaged in any kind of activity, domesticity or driving, or maybe, I have this thing, I just go out into the ruins once a week. I have to do this to recharge myself. So you're sitting out in the ruins and you get forward how the characters are going to develop more, what kind of relationships they're going to lose, and what kind of relationships they're going to make in the story. When these things come to you, then the writer's job does not remain more than that of a typist. My writer friends are not offended by this, but this is how I feel, that the words are going to just write themselves. They're going to come to you. You just have to make the time for that. If you work in a cafe, who writes when it's crowded. So she goes to a coffee shop and she takes a laptop there and she writes there, because that's how her system is. I think every writer has their own system. My system is, I'm a night time, and at night I have to sit in solitude and then I just write. And then when I'm writing Fatma and Hammad, I don't feel as if I have to make an effort. It's very tedious. It's you just lift that burden of the story and the emotional ride of your character. Just take the burden off of me. That's how I'm like, I have to take it off. I have to write it out, and the editing process has to be done after resting what you have written for a while, and then you edit it. Then the writer in you comes out. Then you have to see how much you have, whatever grammatical mistakes or what is not, what can go, what can stay. So I think that is a process which most of the writers follow. But since you asked particularly for mine, this is my process. And I speak a lot to myself. That is one thing that I do, which is the eerie part or the cuckoo part. My family now, they're used to it because they know that she's going around talking to herself or to her characters, and that's normal. But people who don't know me very well, they get a little scared. What's wrong with this lady? And I have to speak to people who are, because I see them. I see them there, so I have to speak to them. I have to get an answer out of them so that I can write my story.
Yeah, and I think your process then reflects in your writing style as well, in your characters and in the style as well.
Thank you.
So I ask you to read something from your work, and then I think then Hammad can take up some questions again.
I think we'll just have a quick comment. Ali Mazhar says that beautifully describes the process of unwinding your thoughts and characters into a story, and he is definitely going to try this. Pro tip. So there's one comment.
Nice. So just read something from your work.
Sure.
Okay. So this is my book. For those who don't know, it's Unfettered Wings: Extraordinary Stories of Ordinary Women. It's got 10 stories in there. I have not selected a passage, so I'm just going to do a blind reading. Okay. This story is Nazia. It's subtitled In Pursuit of Happiness. It's a young girl who has taken divorce from an abusive husband, and right now she's sitting in a courtroom because she has to attend these meetings in the courtroom where she has to bring her son to meet her ex-husband, and he's still abusive with her. And her own feelings. This is a passage that is about her feelings. Despite all this, Nazia had left the house on an empty stomach. She always felt nauseous when she had to go to the court. A reminder of how hard she had to fight to get a divorce from the man who treated her worse than an animal. While her religion allowed her to get separated once she had made up her mind, the law made it hard for her to get rid of the burden of a husband forever. She had had to make appearances, proof that her husband was an abuser, and fight for the custody of her child for months. And even after all that toil, there she sat in the same compound with the same man who was now holding her precious little boy. Nazia could see that when the display of presents was over and Mustafa, the son, had got enough candies to last a week, the child had started to get restless. She stood up to get him, but Asad signaled her to give him some more time. Head down. The phone beeped. It was Imran calling. Imran is a colleague. She teaches at a school, so Imran is a colleague. Hello, Imran, she asked in surprise. She was supposed to be stuffing his mouth with the naan and parathas. Where are their babies? He was truly lost. The voice of Imran through the receiver sounded anxious. What do you mean? Where are you? She asked in disbelief. At the civil court, Now tell me where you lost her voice. She was in utter disbelief. She stood from her bench and started looking around. There were young men around her, some of them with their backs turned towards her, but none of them matched the stylish looks of Imran. She was unknowingly looking for a young man in some brightly colored t-shirt with jeans, with fox leather shoes, or those fake sneakers that spelled Adidas, Addidas. Instead, the person who walked right into her face moments later was someone completely different. Freshly shaven, dressed in a milky white kurta pajama and Peshawari chappals, Imran came closer and said hi to her. Page, I'm going to stop here. This is a good example of the stories that I've written. I think it's because while I'm discussing abusive relationship with one man, I'm giving hope with a nice example that proves that feminism or my stories or my book, it's not against men. It's against patriarchy, maybe. Yes, of course it's against patriarchy. That relationship does not mean that all is lost. It's not like all men are alike. I don't believe in that. Since all women are not alike, there is no one universal truth about being a woman. There is no one universal truth about being a man as well. So 1.5 page that I've read from the book. And well, thank you for letting me. I have a few books which I would like to recommend to your viewers if you would allow me.
Yeah, please go ahead. That was my next question.
What? Because that's brilliant, because I've shown you a book about feminism, about history and George Orwell, because they're my favorites, but not everybody has the same taste in books. So I'm going to share some books which I think was gifted to me by someone. It's really interesting. It's Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. It's got illustrations. It's very interesting. It's like this. Okay, so this page that has opened on its own is Helen Keller. And like this, there are illustrations on one page and there is a small text on the other page that is telling or celebrating the stories of different women from different countries. There are Pakistani women in here as well. I'm not going to name them so that you can be intrigued enough to there's Zaha Hadid, so there is an Arab woman as well. There are a lot of women in here. It's very interesting. It's for men and women as well. This is one book which I so totally truly love. Other Wonders by Danyal Moinuddin. It's a collection of short stories. And this is one book, I must say, that inspired me to write a collection of short stories myself when focusing on novels, and that is what is in fashion or is in vogue. This book, brilliantly written. It also has something, a quote from William Dalrymple. There's a blurb which says that probably the best fiction written in English. And with it, it's really a very, very good book. I don't know where Danyal Moinuddin Saab is right now. I hope he writes something again, because I am a huge fan and I would really love to read something more from him. Just, it's food. We all love food, especially in Lahore. We love it. It's Footprints, but it's been published by Oxford and it's written by Shahnaz Ramzi. And the thing about this book is that it's not just a cookbook as well. It tells you where a certain food originates from, how it became a part of our cuisine, and all the roots and history that is traced back to the Mughals and even beyond. And if there's something that I think that food becomes more interesting when you add some, you add some measure of personal heritage to it. For example, I was just writing an article yesterday, and I was eating a bowl of chane ki chaat. It was quite chatpati. It was something I really like, and I just realized that this bowl of chana chaat has been very store, and I filled my cart with the chutney, with the mint chutney, with the imli chutney, with the vegetables, with the chickpeas, and I just came home. But when this food has been grown on different people, and when you realize that a farmer has grown chickpeas, another has grown mint, another has grown the vegetables, a miller has milled the chaat masala, and a factory worker has back home, and with ease you that food is delivered on the table. But there's a huge story of that food, how it has reached to your table. And when you start, I think, with food or with when these stories are really seen in them, in their walls, in their trunks, in their branches, when these stories are sort of, we have to just visualized, I think comes more sense. They start to have more importance. I think that makes life a little bit more interesting. And the last is Mark Twain. This is also a collection of short stories. I like to read books which that makes it, I don't know, it makes it more interesting for me. But Mark Twain, he's a humorist writer, comical writer. I've watched a lot of these Isolation Central talks that you've been doing, Hammad and Fatma, and they have been very interesting. The one with Wajiha, in which she said that escapist literature is something that has really helped her cope with this time, and I totally agree with that. That I think it's literature of any kind that takes your mind off of the that's going on, because that is going to be part of your life. You have to get news, you have to be informed, you have to be aware. So while you are taking a break from the phone or taking a break from the mainstream media, why not delve in some kind of literature for a while? I think these are four recommendations which I would like to make for the readers. I hope they enjoy them.
I think they are great recommendations, and I remember वजिया से उस दिन यही बात हो रही थी. वजिया भी सुन भी रही थी, बल्कि उन्होंने कमेंट भी किया था. So वो तब भी बात हो रही थी कि it's good to take a break from the reality around us and get into some kind of fiction,
it's essential,
mystical, mythical world, or just get to know more about food, whatever works and whatever you prefer. But the fun part is that it's almost an hour, and I think we should wrap up. But it was a wonderful and a very insightful conversation, and I'm sure we can go for another hour. But I think इसको हम दोबारा भी इंशाल्लाह करते हैं प्लान, ताकि जो
We'll
topics हमारे
invite
रह
Sana
Yeah.
again
तो
दोबारा.
आपसे रिक्वेस्ट जरूर करेंगे कि आप दोबारा हमें टाइम दें, ताकि we will continue this
Oh, I
discussion.
would love to. It was so much fun being here, and I have to say this online, Hammad, that yesterday's, and a lot of sessions that you have been doing, but yesterday's was very helpful for me. I mean, the kind of advice that the lady had was brilliant. And if you see her or speak to her, tell her that her advice personally helped me and uplifted me a lot. Thank you very much for doing this. This is amazing.
No, which as Lisa said, we are all in this together. So we are going to find ways to survive this together as well. So thank you for joining us today. It was a great experience. Thank you for everyone who watched and commented. And हम दोबारा फिर हाजिर होंगे कल शाम को कल रात 10 बजे with another guest. But for now, stay safe, wash your hand, and stay away from other people and read.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Sana. Thank you.
Read. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Okay, Hafiz.